Do people like INFJs? I think this is going to be the shortest video ever. Nope. Well, on a more serious note, I think the answer is actually, it's complicated. So when you first get into the personality stuff, you go on YouTube, you go on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. You type in INFJ, you end up on all these videos. It's sort of like INFJ.
The rarest in the world.
The world's rarest.
The rarest.
The rarest.
The world's rarest personality type.
It's sort of portrayed in this very kind of mythical creature kind of way. Almost like everybody should find this person very valuable. And, you know, in a lot of life, rarity equals value. Like you look at gold. There's a reason why sand isn't valuable, because there's lots of it. But I think with people, it's a little different. The rare people aren't often valued, I think, in the same way as a rare substance like gold. Community and people and culture kind of thrive on conformity and consensus. There's this quote I love from Naval. He's on X. Basically, groups seek consensus and individuals seek truth. And I feel like that quote really defines what an INFJ is doing. An INFJ is seeking truth in almost all situations. Truth is very important. And to groups, to communities, to governments, to political affiliations, truth is, people like to think that truth is important, but it really takes a backseat to consensus. So groups of people are often going, what do we believe? What are we trying to do? And all the individuals will kind of fall in line within that group. INFJs are a little different than that. We are often off on our own. We have our own ideas. We don't fall into line very easily. And I think because of that, we kind of rub certain people the wrong way. We're kind of like sandpaper to the system. Like, what is it about me that irritates certain types of people? It's not the easiest question to answer. You got to have some self-reflection. So NI, introverted intuition, that is the top cognitive function of the INFJ. And I think it is a bit of a weird, elusive thing to most people. And I think this is probably the main reason why we come off a little odd sometimes to people. So the second function of the INFJ is the FE, extroverted feeling. The third function is the TI, introverted thinking. I think that the NI and the TI, introverted intuition, introverted thinking, really combine in an INFJ to make this fairly forward-thinking, analytical person that really does want things to make sense. They really want to find the truth. And I think most of all, INFJs are asking why. So my wife, Lexi, is also an INFJ. And she has this, she says when she was young, she was always saying, but why, but why, but why? And her mom's favorite response was, because I said so. And Lexi often talks about how dissatisfying that really was as a kid. And that is the reality right there. Because I said so, because that's the system, because that's the way we do things, just because, these are all very dissatisfying answers to INFJs. INFJs want to know why. And we're always looking under the surface. We're looking at the subtext. We're trying to figure out the underlying systems and patterns, specifically of people, to try to find out that why. Like, why is that person really saying that? Why is that person acting that way? Oftentimes we don't want to take the face value reason. Oh, they're just tired. No, there's something else going on. So this is the thing that INFJs are often doing. So the SP personalities, I think, often look at us with their SE and are like, what, dude, like, what is your problem? Like, can you just chill, basically? Like, stop asking that question. Stop trying to dig into that so deep. Like, they look at us like we're overthinking. So I think one problem with human behavior is it's not always logical. It's not always rational. Actually, let's just say it's rarely rational and logical. So, you know, one pattern that I've noticed as I come along and I'm like, why are you doing that? Why are you acting that way? Why are you saying that? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you coming at me this way? And a lot of times people just have no answer. And I think one way that INFJs can become quite annoying quite quickly is if they don't accept the answer. I feel like I can't really have a good relationship with somebody unless I understand the why. It's a real problem. So we were sitting at the dinner table the other day, and my daughter says to my son suddenly, like, what, you always just want to know why? And she started like going off on this bit of a rant about how she was annoyed that he was always asking why. My daughter, on the other hand, she kind of just like accept things at face value, which I said is what those SPs like to do. They're more just peaceful, in the moment people, which is also a good way to live, right? Like sometimes I wish that I could be more like that, just live in the moment, not be so concerned about world fixing. I feel like that's the trap that the INFJs fall into. So I think the main problem with INFJs is when they see contradiction or something that doesn't make sense. This is actually one of the ways that I can tell a person is an INFJ. They're sitting there and they're going, that doesn't make sense. It's just like, why is that person saying that? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's a very common phrase for INFJs. And I think to a lot of other people, this obsession with making things make sense, with finding the truth, digging down, it feels like nitpicking to them. It feels like interrogating, especially when you do it to another person. My ex, actually, she used to use that word about me, like, you are interrogating. I think it just so happens that she was very avoidant. And I think an avoidant person for an INFJ is a bad situation because quite often INFJs want to know people quite well. They want to know what's going on with them. And if there's weird things going on, they want to dig into it and find out what's going on. I mean, INFJs, they make great therapists, great doctors, any like a psychiatrist, anytime where you're kind of digging into things to figure it out. So another thing that NI does is it comes up with these future predictions, and they're kind of like these intuitions about the future. Recently, I like to watch videos about AI. It's sort of one topic that I like recently. You know, if you watched an INTJ talk about the future of AI, it would be very technology focused. But I watched this video the other day and he called himself an AI ethicist. And I was like, this guy must be an NF. And I tried to Google it, and it turns out, yeah, they said maybe INFJ or ENFJ. So he was more concerned about what's going to happen to people in the age of AI. So I think the biggest problem with all these future predictions is a lot of people are suspicious of them. They kind of see it as like just these wild, crazy guesses, and they don't really, there's no hard data about these intuitions about the future, and they kind of dismiss them. And I think that really annoys INFJs. It makes us feel misunderstood, not listened to, because I think at least a lot of my thoughts are about the future and predicting things and looking at the patterns and coming to these conclusions and like trying to prepare myself or trying to decide, what am I doing, get myself on my path, and so I can work towards my goal. So I think one thing that can happen with INFJs is we get this feeling of being misunderstood. We get this feeling like people aren't listening to us. And then if we get to the point where it's like, this person doesn't get it, we can kind of come across with this like elitist attitude, I think, where it's like, you wouldn't get it. I'm not even going to bother. I'm not even going to bother explaining that. You don't understand me. You wouldn't get it. I think I have had people in the past kind of accuse me of being a little elitist, almost like you think you're so smart kind of attitude. And it is funny because in my own brain, I'm like, well, I'm definitely smarter than you. I think that in general, the INTJs and the INFJs, both the NI DOMs, generally do have higher IQs from the stats I've seen. So yeah, I think generally INTJs and INFJs are intelligent people. And it's just an unfortunate reality that half of all people are below average intelligence, right? By the law of averages. Averages are right in the middle. Well, that means half the people are below average intelligence. And I think it's just a truth that people sometimes or often or whatever are not going to get it. They're not going to get our intuitions. And I think the secret is to recognize that and then not take it too seriously. Just sort of understand that this person's running on a different wavelength. They're like a here and now kind of person. Or in the case of the SJs, they're almost past focused. They're sitting there looking at the tradition, the bureaucracy. They're trying to like uphold the status quo. So they're very past looking. We come along with our forward looking stuff, and it's just like, it's very mind boggling to them, I think. Especially in those SJ personalities, that when you ask them why they're doing stuff, they're like, because that's the way we do it. I'm not sure if you've seen Mandalorian. It's sort of a Star Wars offshoot. But the Mandalorian order, they're saying is, this is the way. And then they all repeat it. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
That is a very SJ organization. So I think it would be pretty rare for an SJ to understand what in the world is going on inside an INFJ's brain. And they may even be like, I don't like that guy. That guy is weird. All right, I'll talk a little bit about FE now, extroverted feeling, and how that kind of comes out in an INFJ. So thinking and feeling, the two thinking and feeling functions are decision-making functions. INFJs will often be like, read the room, look at how everybody's feeling, make decisions based on other people's feelings and other people's values in some ways. The thing about FE is it can be like a superpower. It's like preempt them and almost give them what they need, give them what makes them feel good. But in the extreme case, you become this sort of pushover people pleaser, right? So I've been kind of thinking about this and why this also can annoy people. It's because, especially like NFPs or like the very authentic personalities, they might look at an INFJ or an ENFJ and be like, why are you masking so hard? Like, it's almost like they look at us and think that we're hiding ourselves. Right now, if I walk into a room full of people with a very strong opinion that I might not agree with, I'm probably not going to rock the boat and like, try to argue with all of them. An NFP might, right? I think the INFPs, they're kind of known for like just speaking their mind and feelings and kind of shocking people, right? It's like Christmas dinner and all of a sudden they're like telling Uncle Joe like that he's basically an immoral pig. I feel like that's INFPs. I have an INFP mother and an INFP sister. Yeah, I think FE, when it's healthy, is really great. But when FE is unhealthy, it's masking. And so that you come off as this kind of inauthentic person that kind of chameleons their way around. When they're with these people, they're acting this way. When they're with these people, they're acting a different way. They say, too, when NI combines with FE, it can create this kind of preachy person sometimes, where it's like our morality kind of comes out and we will defend people or defend the feelings of people. And it's like that AI ethicist I was watching. Like, he feels really bad that over the next 5 years, a whole bunch of people are going to lose their jobs. That's what he says. And he feels like we need to fix this. We need to help this because all these poor people are going to lose their jobs. And like, I think to other types that are more efficient, they're like, well, we can't keep a job around just because, it's nice. It's nice to people. Why would you pay a person $60,000 a year when you can pay this software system $1,000 a year? And the NFJs were like, ooh, like this is a very weird moral conundrum for us. I think one thing that really throws off people about INFJs is that we will live in the FE state for so long, and we will be quite nice, we'll be quite accepting. And I think NFPs really notice this because the NFPs are always like talking their values, and they might say things like, I don't know why, but lately I've just found myself around a lot of NFPs, and they're always like very vocal with their values and their ideas. And I often don't agree with them, but I'm in like a Thanksgiving party or something, and I'm like, I'm not going to start disagreeing, right? And I think the problem with us is that we will take this for so long until all of a sudden it like overflows. And then it's like, boom, we start that interrogation process. Like, I was at a party and someone was telling me about their it's like somatic healing. And I could tell it started happening. Like, she was telling me about this interesting thing for her, right? And like, she was helping people with this somatic, I don't even really know what it is, but I started to ask a few questions, and the more as I asked a few questions, I was like, that's not making sense. And then I started going a little, and then I had to stop myself because I'm like, okay, I think I'm actually hitting that point where I can tell on her face she's feeling a little like I don't know what the word would be. She's feeling a little threatened because especially with the NFPs, I'm threatening her values. And I think that is really one way we can super piss off the FI people. The problem with values, it seems like to me, is they don't really have reasons a lot of the time. They're just kind of there. However they got there. And those people will defend those values no matter what, independent of rationale or logic. It's sort of the reason why so many different religions exist in the world. You've got a Jehovah's Witness, you've got a Seventh-day Adventist, you've got a Catholic, you've got a Protestant, and all of them are defending their beliefs, but they can't agree, right? Like they can't get together and be like, let's talk about this rationally and figure out which one is the correct version. And that's because it's values, and values don't run on rationale and logic. So I think this is one big reason actually why a lot of people don't like INFJs, is because we run on logic. And so if somebody has a belief, like I hear from a Mormon that Joseph Smith had these magic glasses that read something, and I'm like, what? Like, how does that work, right? And then eventually you get down to it where it's like, it is just a belief. There is no reason, or there's no proof or evidence that these magic glasses were real or they existed. But that's the thing, is for me, that's not satisfying. But for them, it is. And so that's been sort of a bit of a game that I've been playing. It's like, I have to realize that is good enough for them. It's not good enough for me. And so the real trick is to recognize that as it's happening and be like, okay, time to back off. One thing about INFJs that I think throws people off is that we don't fake it very well when we're upset or we don't like someone. Like, soon as someone has offended me, or I feel like they're damaging or they're dangerous or they're not a good person, I do not want to be around them. And I think that sometimes that comes off as really harsh to certain people. Like, I don't like liars, I don't like manipulators, and I don't like people that are trying to trick me. And I really don't like people that don't have self-reflection and can't apologize for something hurtful that they did. Forgive isn't the right word, but like, I can't just go back to the point where I trusted them. I would need a year, 2 years, 3 years of good behavior now to cancel out that very untrustworthy thing. It's like, I think what it is that for myself, and I can't say this for all INFJs, but I would suspect it, is that INFJs are more concerned about actions than they are about people's words. And if somebody says a bunch of stuff like, I'm trustworthy, listen to me, and then they do a bunch of stuff that's clearly not good, and you realize, I can't trust that person, or that person's lying, it's very hard to come back from that. And so the INFJ door slam is a real thing, where you kind of just cut people off. You're like, I can't trust that person. I don't want to be around that person. That person gives me solid ick. And I think that can come across as very critical and judgmental to many people. I had a friend say it to me one time. He's like, I think the problem is that you're just very judgmental. And he's an ENTP. And it seems like ENTPs, it's like almost like nothing really bothers them. Like, they're just kind of laughy. Like, even when they don't agree with stuff, it doesn't really bug them. They kind of just do their own thing and like build their cool companies and forge forward. And like, to us, I feel like I take things very seriously, and maybe it's too seriously. I think to the ENTPs, they're like, just chill, right? Like, just relax a little bit. Sometimes I wish I could undoor slam a person, but it just doesn't work like that. Like, I just don't know how to, almost like, it's like I need that person to initiate the process. I need that person to show me self-reflection. I need that person to do something that would make me start trusting them again. So yeah, that's a problem. All right, so a few tips, just a couple tips. One thing that I've found really works with the FI personalities, so like ENFP, ESFP, INFP, especially ISFP, is share some like deep internal struggle, or like be authentic. Like, share something that to them appears hard to share. I did this by accident recently to an ENFP. I kind of shared kind of one of my main struggles, but I didn't really think it was a big deal to share it. I think these days I hide things about myself less. She was just like, wow, like, I love it. I love that. I love that you're working on that. I love that you shared that with me. And like, she was super impressed. It was an interesting thing because the FE, right, might try to hide that. I think INFJs often try to hide a lot of themselves and they come off very masky, very guarded. So if you can like open up and be vulnerable with people, I mean, the thing is, everybody likes that. The FE people and the FI people, if you can be vulnerable, I think, that can fix that masking problem. I think another way we can get people to like us a lot more is tone down the NI. And I don't mean hide it. I just mean before you share your insights about the world, make sure you've thought about it and make sure you've done your research. So that's actually the hard part about insights. I'm like, I have this thought, right, about what the world might be like in a little bit. Or I have this theory about a person. I think that guy's cheating on that girl. Could just say that. Literally, your NI could deliver that to you. And you might be right. But go get some evidence. And I think that's the biggest advice I have to people with NI. Go get some evidence. Go do the research and back that intuition up with real data, real facts, or real sensory observations. And then people will accept your theories a lot more if you do that. Guaranteed. I think the good thing about NFJs, INFJs, ENFJs is we're very good. Like, we're very good advocates for people. We're good mentors. We're really good teachers. INFJs especially, they will learn something so deeply before they share it that often they can be an incredible teacher. Like recently, my son wanted to learn how to do a Rubik's Cube. I could have just given him a video, but I was like, you know what? This is complicated. I'm going to learn this. So I sat down, I learned how to solve a Rubik's Cube, and then I learned how to solve it faster and faster and faster. And then I taught it to him. So I spent like a whole weekend learning the Rubik's Cube, and then I taught him. And now we're having races and stuff, and it's actually kind of fun. But that's like a perfect example of how an INFJ would teach. They really deeply learn it first. I think that's a really good quality of an INFJ. So the downside is, though, a lot of INFJs don't actually teach anybody. They have all this information and knowledge in their head. We'll go and offer that to somebody now, mentor somebody, teach somebody. And I think that can be a very rewarding thing that can, share yourself on, make a YouTube channel, whatever you like, right? I think that can be a very healthy thing, and it can kind of improve people's perception of you, that you are helping people, you are teaching people. Anyway, if you've made it this far in the video, leave a comment down below, kind of a story where you think that maybe somebody didn't like you and it felt unfair. Maybe try to give some insight as to why you think that happened and maybe what you could have done, or like a tip for other people on how we can kind of, I don't know, it's sort of like, right, you have to be on good terms with people in order to do good work and help people and build a community. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a great day. Bye.